This is the Red Podcast.
This is episode number 123. If you're sick of having meetings where you get nothing accomplished, we're going to show you how to make sure that doesn't happen again. That's coming up.
This is the Red Podcast. Real entrepreneur development. Make more money, work less, and live a life of freedom. No BS advice that really works. Here's your hosts, David Hooper and Laurel Staples.
Yesterday I was so busy I had appointments back to back. I had a hair appointment. Then I had a radio show interview. So I had to get down to the station, and next to where I was getting my hair cut, there's a smoothie place. Nashville, you know, we had a huge ice storm last week.
Yeah, Nashville was covered in ice.
Covered in ice, sheets of ice. So I'm coming around the building. The haircut place is in the back, kind of upstairs. Came downstairs. Smoothie place is in the front. I'm on a wood deck kind of path. Turn a corner. Bam. Next thing you know, I'm flat on my butt.
Did you wipe out?
Huge sheet of ice. It was literally 4 feet by 3 feet. Probably about an inch thick. And this is a week after the ice storm passed. That's how much ice we got here in Nashville. I actually had an interesting experience after the fact once I picked myself up.
Did you injure yourself?
I'm going to tell that story on the next episode of Red Podcast because it doesn't end there. That's really just the beginning. But watch for ice. That's the moral of this story. For the full story on slipping on ice, what happened, what you can learn from it, how it can affect your business, redpodcast.com/124.
Can slipping on ice affect your business?
Yeah, it could have affected a lot of things.
There you go.
A lot of business lessons. So that's the positive of this.
All right.
Falling on your butt in front of everybody, get an episode out of it. But this episode, we're going to talk about meetings that don't suck. This is the Red Podcast. Red stands for Real Entrepreneur Development. We help you build an audience, sell more products, and make more money. We're business optimizers. Going to show you how to be more efficient in your marketing and find the hidden money sitting right in front of you, sometimes under sheets of ice.
You got to thaw that ice.
You got to
find it.
Salt, heat, whatever it takes. We've all been in those meetings that are a complete waste of time. You used to work in corporate America, designing color laser printers. You were an engineer. Probably had a ton of meetings like that.
We did. Our team meeting happened on Fridays at 1 o'clock. And I have to say, it was all I could do to stay awake during these meetings. And they just went on for a couple hours, and I'm ready to go home, and it's the end of the week, and it was really bad. But I was not the only one trying not to fall asleep, so it didn't make me feel as bad.
I've had some really interesting meetings over the years. One time I was working with a corporate client, and for some reason, I guess somebody had read a book, some kind of new management book. That would always happen. And then they would try to enact those management strategies from these books. And one of them was, if you were doing something else, you could better pay attention in the meeting. So they literally handed out coloring books and crayons, and you would just sit there like drawing kids' coloring books, thinking that if your hands were busy, you could somehow pay more attention to what was being said in the meeting.
How did that work out?
I don't know, but I was loving it.
Did you paint a pretty picture?
I was drawing all sorts of stuff. Yeah, because to me, the meetings were a waste of time, and that's why we're having this episode. First of all, before we get into it, let's define meeting. I'm going to define it for this episode: 3 or more people. And this could be done via the phone, via the web, or in person. We're not talking about one-on-one. You have to have more than 2 people in a room.
I actually kind of like these boring meetings that we would have at my corporate job because it means I didn't have to do any work. I just had to sit there. So it's actually a nice little break. But when you're an entrepreneur, you don't have the time to waste time doing something that's not work and that's not productive and not helping you reach your goals. So you have to be really particular whether you want to have a meeting and what you're going to get out of that meeting. This is going to help you do that.
What we're talking about specifically may not be for you because you get it. However, we're going to define some things that you can pass along to the people that you're working with so they get it too. And the first thing to do is you got to ask yourself who absolutely needs to be there. These all-team meetings, all-hands meetings, a lot of times you're wasting money because people don't need to be there. Sometimes it just needs to be 3 people, maybe 2 people even. Sometimes I think people that are doing these meetings, they just want to have an audience.
Yeah, nothing's a bigger waste of time than going to a meeting that you don't belong at or inviting someone to a meeting that they don't belong at. So you do have to get clear on who really needs to be at this meeting. Otherwise, you're going to get off track. It's not going to be worthwhile. You're going to waste your time.
There's also the boy who cried wolf mentality, where people start ignoring you. And when you really need them for something, they'll be like, it's not important. It's never important.
It's the boy who cried meeting, actually.
Second question to ask, what is the purpose of the meeting and what is the outcome that we want? A lot of meetings, they just happen because we need a meeting.
But this is not a social gathering that you're trying to have. That's a lot different, where you can just talk and ramble amongst yourselves. A meeting that you have, if you want it to be productive, it has to have a purpose, and there should be an outcome that you're striving for, whether you reach it or not. You might have to set up another meeting, but you do want to have an outcome that you want, and you want to be clear about that outcome in advance. So when you get into the meeting, say, hey, here's the purpose of the meeting. You should probably let people know in advance, but reiterate it at the beginning of the meeting and say, this is what we're trying to achieve during this meeting, and just to set the precedent for what's about to happen.
I would be even more specific. I would say, here's what we are going to achieve during this meeting, and when we leave here, we will know how to do blank.
Exactly. And that keeps people engaged and focused and on target. And anytime someone goes off on a tangent, if you're the leader of the meeting, you can bring them back to the purpose and say, well, that's really a good point, but the purpose of this meeting is to do X, and we need to come back to that so we can resolve this by the end of the meeting.
Third question to ask, can you resolve this issue in another way? Email, phone. Had a guy who was trying to get booked on the radio show that I do. Producer was in on the email chain. I was in on it. And the producer asked him, send us the hook. Let us know what it is that you want to bring to the table, and then we can decide. He said, yeah, I'd love to get together for a conference call so that we can discuss options. No, we didn't ask for that. We asked for the hook. We want the email. We're not going to get 2 or 3 people on a conference call with you when we don't know what it is that you want. I find most things can be solved via email, sometimes via a quick text. Kind of ridiculous for us to set up meetings for that, because then you've got to schedule everything. How do you schedule everything? That's going to take some time. Then you got the meeting itself.
Sometimes I find email to be hard to go back and forth to solve one issue. So I find that hopping on the phone with one person can really help resolve something or clear something up or get you the answer that you need when 10 emails wouldn't suffice. So that's an option as well. Maybe you don't need 5 people in a room or your whole team to come together, but maybe you need one phone call with one person, or one phone call with, or 2 phone calls with 2 different people, and that will resolve your issue. So think about that.
Here's the reason I suggest emails, because my ringer is always off, and I'm very conscientious of calling people because of that. I don't want to be interrupted, and I don't want people to interrupt me. With that said, if you've got an organization where you can actually call somebody, it is really easy to handle things. I know Tim Ferriss, in his book 4-Hour Workweek, this is one of the things that really surprised me. He suggested if it can be handled in less than a 5-minute phone call, to call. Now, I'm not sure if he's actually doing that or just recommending it, but to me, that seems to take a lot longer than 5 minutes, because it takes you off task and you've got to get back on task, which is a good 5 or 10 minutes in addition to the conversation.
See, I disagree, though, because I think that can really easily resolve something to be in a phone call, as opposed to email just sucks away so much of my time. It's like I email them and they email me back and I email them back, and it's just ongoing. And I feel like I could pick up the phone and just resolve it in a couple minutes.
You can, in a perfect world, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think it depends on you and your style and how you work, but I just wouldn't rule out the phone and getting that handled real quickly.
But if you're a phone person like me and you have to leave a message where I have to actually hear the message, sometimes a text would be better, or an email. It's just easier for me to pick up.
All right, so email David. Don't call him.
But call everybody else.
Call everybody else.
What about when booking time? We've got a rule when we book time. Any meeting, it has a start time and an end time. You want an end time because Parkinson's law suggests that the meeting will expand to the allotted time given. And if there is no end time, it just keeps going and going. I also suggest having a shorter meeting than you think that you need for the same reason, because when you have an end time, when you have a short meeting, it forces you to get to the point. Red Podcast, every episode, about 25 minutes long. It forces us to get to the point. We chat a little bit at the very beginning, maybe a minute or two, but you've heard these podcasts where they just go on indefinitely. 25 minutes in, they're still talking. Hey, how's your day? What's going on? How you doing?
I think it's great to set an end time. I personally wouldn't set an end time less than or sooner than I feel like I could get the meeting wrapped up in, because then say you need an hour to do something and you've done this type of meeting before, you know you need an hour and you give yourself 45 minutes hoping you'll get to the point and be able to focus more, then it's probably going to end up taking an hour anyway, and then it throws the rest of your day off. So I like to plan for meetings to take as long as I think they're going to need, but definitely set that end date, because nothing stresses me out more than not knowing when something's going to end. I put an end date on get-togethers and parties that I have and things like that, because I like to know when something starts and when something ends, and it helps people get focused, stay on task, and then know that there is an end and they can eventually leave.
If you think about how we live our lives, let's imagine you're a runner. It's nice to know that you've got the 26.2 miles of a marathon, that it's going to end, because then you can manage your energy. If you just started running, didn't know where it was going to end, man, that would be a tough run mentally, even if it's a shorter run than a marathon. It's nice to know what you're getting into. Meetings are no exception.
With the end time, you have to factor in that you need to start on time. That's a big one as well, is you don't want to keep people waiting. When I was at my corporate job, we started every meeting like 10 minutes late. We called it company time. It was just always behind, and it set people back, and it's just not very productive. So you do want to have an end time and start on time and be respectful of that end time. And if you do need to stay later, you can say, look, this is the end time that we set. For those of you who really need to leave, you can leave, but we have a couple more things to cover. I'd like to stick with it. But respect people's time and let them leave if they need to leave. If you still need to cover some things, if people are willing to stay, you can do that, but be specific about what you want to do after the meeting ends.
So question for you. Let's say you're writing a blog post, you're writing a book. I'm going to take it back to the shorter time than you think is needed. Have you ever written a blog post, worked on your book in a shorter amount of time, and found that it forced you to get more clear and the writing was actually better because you had a limited amount of time?
I don't know. I think it kind of stresses me out to not have a lot of time, because I feel like sometimes the ideas just don't flow. That's just me.
So I think that tension can actually help you, though. I think it forces you to have to make decisions, and that's the reason that I suggest a shorter meeting. But I do agree with you is that if you constrict it so tightly, like, hey, we're going to have a 5-minute meeting, everybody's got to make this lifelong decision about the next 10 years insurance in the next 5 minutes. Sometimes you do have to weigh the pros and cons. At the same time, the tendency is on the other side of that for meetings to go on and on and on. It's like a mediation service with your attorneys. You've got to have your side go to their side brings something back to your side, and they last forever.
Mm-hmm. Or I've been in workshops before, which aren't meetings, but they're similar, and the person had an end time, and it was like a 2-hour workshop, and then she just kept going and going and going. And I'm staring at the clock like, can I leave? Is it rude to leave? What should I do? That's an awkward time. So you want to stick with your end time and respect that people need to leave and allow them to leave at that time.
That's also going to get more respect from the people who attend your meetings, because they won't just get up and leave when they know it's going to end, but you have to honor that. Mm-hmm. You have to have that reputation for honoring it, so they'll trust you the next time around. Here's another way to save time. Save time by sending any handouts to people before the meeting starts. You and everybody else need to come prepared. Nobody needs to be caught up the first 5 or 10 minutes.
When you're in the meeting, every action item that you have needs to have a person assigned to it. If you just say, oh, we need to do X, Y, Z for our company, or to get our website up this week, or whatever that looks like for you, you need to have a person that you want that to go to. Otherwise, there's really no way for you to move forward in the meeting unless you have an idea of who is going to handle that action item.
That's like a little girl laying on her bed in her bedroom, dreaming, oh, I'm going to be famous someday. I'm going to have my own TV show. Everybody's going to know my name, but she has no action plan. And we think, oh, that's cute. That's what a little girl would do. But we do it all the time in meetings. We need to get more web traffic. We need to have more listeners for the podcast. We need to do X, Y, Z. But that's where it stops. Another time saver, another thing that you need to do in your meeting to make sure that you take care of business and the meeting is productive is to follow an agenda. This not only respects people's time, but it makes sure that you walk out of there with the action items, with what you said needs to be done, with the outcome that you want. I had a meeting one time, no agenda, and it got overtaken by what I call the ball buster. You ever had one of those guys in a meeting? He's just going to harp on every little point. It's almost like being in court. We've got that attorney who's arguing every single word of the testimony. Objection, 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 and nothing ever gets done. And if you get a ball buster in your meeting, you better have that in time. You better have that agenda.
And it's up to the person running the meeting to follow the agenda. Nobody else is obligated to follow your agenda. You have to keep people on task. You have to keep control of your meeting. And if there is a ball buster in your meeting, then you have to take control of it. And you have to guide them to the next point on the agenda if that's what it takes.
Somebody's got to drive the thing. If you're leading the meeting, that somebody is you. One of the things that I do with meetings when something comes up, I do it like my to-do list. When I have a to-do list item that needs to be added, it doesn't get added to that day's work. It gets added to the next day or the best time for me to do it. Because if you keep adding things to the middle of your process, the process gets pushed back and nothing ever gets accomplished.
Something that's really important for me in meetings is personally no cell phones, no phones in the meeting. Nothing bothers me more than whether it's a one-on-one meeting or a group meeting when people have their phones out and they're responding to text messages and things like that. That gets my goat. So
you have to set that rule at the very beginning.
You do. You have to set rules for your meeting at the very beginning, whether it's no mobile phones, no laptops, no electronics, whatever that looks like for you, coloring books, you want to bring those in, whatever you want to do, you have to set the rules for your own meeting, and you have to be clear on those rules. Otherwise, people will take advantage and do whatever they feel like doing.
I don't like people taking notes on laptops or mobile phones. Mobile phones, I don't get it. Why don't you just get a piece of paper? It's much quicker. At least to me. Maybe I'm just too old.
I think you're too old because I think people have forgotten how to write. So, hence the electronics.
I think another thing about paper that helps with meeting notes, though, is it's a physical representation of what it is that you have to do. It's great to have notes and throw things up in Evernote. I saw a guy talking about Evernote the other day. Oh, yeah, I put about 50 things in Evernote a day. Oh, really? What is it? It's like you're a digital hoarder. It just goes into the abyss of your hard drive and you'll never see it again. A physical piece of paper, you can write down your notes, and if you need to, you can scan them later, put them in Evernote if you must, or you can go through and get the important things off of your notes and come up with that action plan. You're going to be much more efficient working with paper, in my opinion.
But how many journals do you have, David? Because I have like business journals for like the last few years, and they're piling up, but I don't want to get rid of them because like there's so many great ideas and research I've done and books that I've outlined and all of this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I wish this was all on Evernote.
When I go to a new event, I usually start with a new journal because
that's why I have all these half-empty journals.
Yeah, I've got the half-empty one. I'm like, well, I might lose it or it's going to get mixed up. So what I'm starting to do is I've got a refillable journal that I can refill every time, and it forces me to look at the old journal and do something with it. And this is where something like Evernote will come in handy. Evernote has a great app where you can scan using your phone, just take a photo of each page. You can put those journals in a digital document specifically for that event or specifically for that project. So it can be very, very handy. Of course, you can obviously do that with a bookshelf or something, but yeah, the half-empty journal, real problem.
I know, I have so many of those. And I'm in the middle of my journal right now that I'm using, or my notebook, and I'm ready to get another one. So we'll see what happens.
We started the episode, Laurel, you talked about falling asleep in your corporate meetings, and that's something that you've got to be aware of. Are people bored? I was in a group, and it was more of a personal development mastermind group, but we had a guy, and his only job was to watch and make sure people were still being present. And literally, if he discovered that somebody was sleeping or slacking off or just kind of daydreaming, he'd get everybody up and you'd have to do push-ups or jumping jacks or something.
Oh my God,
He
he'd
was gonna
totally be
get
busting
you
my balls.
back into it. Yeah.
Well, they tried to lure you to these meetings so that they weren't so miserable by having donuts. So I was probably in some sort of like bored sugar coma thing going on, which didn't help, but love those donuts.
Yeah, that's the bribe that gets you there. Donuts. In corporate America, you'll do anything for a donut.
Oh my gosh, it's like the carrot on the stick out in front of you that you're always trying to go towards is that donut. People would attend the meeting just for the donut and then probably fall asleep. So it was not quite efficient, I'll say that.
At the end of the meeting, very important that you wrap up with a clear summary of what was accomplished and go back to those action items. Make sure everybody's clear. Even with two people in the room, you and me here, Laurel, you're having a different experience than I am. And when you have a meeting with 3 or more people, that absolutely happens. So if you want to be on the same page.
And then you need to immediately follow up with what happened in the meeting and put those action items in writing. So to keep people on task, on target, if you assign tasks to different people, make sure that they're clear on what they have to do going forward and maybe set some deadlines as well if you're trying to keep people on task.
Right. So at the end of your meeting, you're going to do this verbally and then immediately after send everybody an email. Here's what's happening. So it's in writing. Nobody can dispute that. And then when the next meeting starts, you can have that check-in. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? If you have any questions or comments, reach out to us. We're online at redpodcast.com. You'll find past episodes. You'll be able to get in touch with us to suggest future episodes. We got an app, Laurel.
Yay, the app.
Google App Store, Amazon App Store, if you're on Android. If you're on iPhone, Apple App Store. Just search for Real Entrepreneur Development. And while you're at the Apple App Store, give us a review. Leaving a review helps us to come up more frequently in the Apple search engine. More people find the podcast, and we can develop the Real Entrepreneur Development community. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on the next episode where I will be talking about falling flat on my butt in front of a store and the business lessons that I learned from that. We'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to Red Podcast, Real Entrepreneur Development. Subscribe today using iTunes, Stitcher, or via RSS at redpodcast.com.